just discuss a few things about estimating. So last week, guys, what we did, we talked about chapter 1 was an introduction to estimating, and we said that in order to be a good estimator, you have to be a good manager. If you do the best estimation and you manage it wrongly or poorly, you're going to lose in this job. So this chapter, right, we tied the estimating to the project management, Jamie. So this chapter will kind of slice the estimating process for you. Probably one of the most important chapters in this book is this chapter. So we talked about the important role estimating plays in the electrical industry. Learn more about the process of estimating. So this chapter in particular, Brian, my friend, will be about the process of estimating. Last week we talked about, guys, the tying the estimating to the project management, and we said if you are not managing the project properly, you will lose money regardless of how good your estimating is. We talked about different estimating, negotiated bid, competitive bid, and a bunch of other things. Before we go ahead, guys, and start, there's a couple of qualities of good estimators. As we go through these ones, I know a lot of you guys are doing estimating right now. You should probably check for yourself, give yourself out of 10. Out of 10, how much do you give yourself for willingness to learn? The NEC Code Book 2014 is coming. That will impact the way we design and implement the system. Are you willing to go there and read it? So willingness to learn. If you are a good estimator and you're not willing to learn, you're not going to last for long. Familiarity with the new products. Every time, guys, new products will come. So these are a checklist of you or anybody else. If you want to see, are you a good estimator or are you a mediocre one? Familiarity with new products. Do you read about the products, understand them? There's a lot of switch gears, guys, coming all the time, a lot of lights. Understanding of the construction. Do you understand the type of construction from steel building into concrete building into wood building? All the classification, guys. You go drill right through a column. You have a column. You can't go drill 4-inch and move your conduits right through a column. So the more you understand about the construction overall, the better estimator you will be. And you probably agree with me because ultimately, Jeff, we are part of a construction industry, right? You can't pull a conduit in vacuum. You have a conduit have to be pulled through a space. Okay, this is my favorite. Orderly mind, careful, accurate, and neat. If you're a good estimator, guys, you deal with a lot of data. You guys have been putzing around with a lot of numbers, crunching a lot of numbers, putting things together. So if you don't have if you're not organized, don't have accurate, neat organization skills, you will suffer as an estimator. I have my saying always. I tell the students, guys, organized people on average perform twice as good as unorganized people. All things considered, the same amount of level of intelligence, of course, apple to apple. If you're organized, all things considered, you will perform, or neat and careful and orderly minded, you perform twice as much as somebody who is not organized. Decisive. You guys will be in the places where you have to make a decision. Somebody's sitting there and 4 electricians are standing waiting for you to make a decision. Joe, my friend, I always say not making a decision is worse than making the wrong decision. That's kind of my saying is you have to be decisive. Decisive does not mean to be hasty decisions. If you understand the industry, they'll come to you and they say, we can't pull this set of conduits this way. You have to be able to understand your project and make a decision right on the spot for them. So these are a few things, guys. Fair, honest, integrity. People would like to be treated, like we said, with respect. So you have apprentices, you have journeymen. They're not your slaves. You're going to treat them well and expect the best out of them, right? Like we said, hire the well-trained, motivated, skilled electricians and expect the best out of them and pay them well. So these are a few things. Knowledge of the NEC code book and local codes. You do lighting everywhere, guys. Lighting, if you go from city to city, there's a lot of lighting ordinance. It's not enough to know the NEC code book. You go to Bloomington, they're very strict outside lighting code. So you have to be aware for that code. If you're not aware of it and you install your fixtures and the inspector comes, they will make you take them down. What does taking them down means? You lost money on the project. So these are a few things. Patience, patience, patience. Joe, my friend, you're going to deal with people you like and you don't like and you respect and you have minimum regard for. So you have to be, as I'm not going to tell you something that you don't know. You have to be patient. Organized. We talked about organization skills. I'm a firm believer. Like I said, if you're organized, all things considered, you will perform twice as good as somebody who is not. Stick to it, get the job done. There's a lot of details, guys. I have a real story. A student like yourself came one time and he was almost crying, the guy. He said, Chad, every Monday I have stomach. Every time I have to go to work because I have to be on the site and I have to make up decision and everybody's looking at me and my boss is not supporting me. He threw me on a job and I have to make up decisions. I'm so scared. So he ended up quitting the job because I think they put him above his head to make decisions for a job he's not capable of doing. So I guess the only thing I like what Dave Karski, when he comes here, guys, he always say it takes 5 years to create a good estimate. 5 years. And to be a project manager, step number one is to be a good estimator. Give yourself another 2 years above the estimator to be a really good project manager. Okay, so that's a few things about the qualities of a good estimators. Any comments, guys? Any questions? Common sense. I know probably most of you guys working on the with the industry. So, okay, let's talk about duties and responsibilities. If you are to become an estimator in general, what would be your duties and responsibilities? I'm going to ask the same question for Jason, guys. He's going to be here at 9 o'clock. We'll ask him. He's an estimator project manager for Melrose. He leads multi-million-dollar projects. So it'll be really interesting to see what he said. Okay, here's the ability to mentally visualize the material items required and how they are installed. As an estimator, guys, not only you need to know the material that you're taking off, but also how the material is put together. Rigid metal conduit. Can we thread EMT? Can we thread rigid? How long will it take you to thread in the field 5-inch rigid conduit and bend the 5-inch rigid conduit versus bending a 4-inch EMT? So these are visualizing and understanding a material is a big deal, guys. Electrical work is complex. The estimator should have electrical construction experience, preferably as an electrician. If you're an electrician and we work in the field, guys, definitely it's a plus. Definitely, you know how the material is put together. Obviously, a lot of you are not electricians, have not worked in the field. If you're not an electrician, you have not worked in the field, you have to buddy with somebody, the foreman, the electricians, watch them all the time, see how they put the system together, and learn from them. Watch your project manager when you go in the field, and that's basically the best way you can do it. And just FYI, just because you're a German electrician, guys, does not mean you have done every type of work. There's a lot of Germans I faced. They have done residential only, so you put them in an industrial. They have no clue how to wire an industrial plant. So be aware that just because you're an electrician does not mean you have experience with every type of work. Okay, estimators must be able to mentally recognize the need for special equipment and services, scaffolding, man lift, cranes, trenching, ridging services. All these guys, when we do the service, when you guys were doing the service, did you take into account who's going to be digging the trench? Are we going to be trenching to the service? That's what I want to ask you when we sit there. Who's going to be doing? Did you assign dollar value for the trenching? Are you going to be trenching it? Do you want to hire somebody to trench it for you? So the building that we have right now is not small. It's a very small building, so you don't need scaffolding. Who's going to be doing this? So there's a lot of construction issues related to the science of estimating, as you can tell. Must be comfortable with numbers, math as it pertains to electrical construction and design calculation. So all these. Okay, here's one of your major responsibilities if you're becoming an estimator. Purchasing material. Have good negotiation skills with suppliers to arrive at competitive price. The ultimate duties of the estimator, guys, to come up with, really, the whole thing is to come up with a bid price. With the bid price, get you an itemized list of the material so you can purchase it. Then it might be assigned to you the responsibility of purchasing these material on a timely manner with certain quantities for every stage of the project. So you have to be able to have very good relationship with the vendors, guys, and know how to negotiate a price to come up with the best price that you can get to. Project management and tracking. Develop information for the project so that it can be managed effectively. When you guys, the software that we have, the calculation that we have is not the best, but when you use a software, an estimating software. The estimating software should give you the labor and the material, for every stage of your project. Why do we care about this one, JB? Because at bottom line, you need to manage the project. And if you guys remember last week, we said the difference between having a profitable project, non-profitable project, is the difference between good management of the project and bad management. So managing, project management and tracking, you have to develop material to help you manage the project. Okay, here's a couple of things, guys, and some of them are common sense. Estimating workspace and tools. What do you need for estimating workspace and tools? Workspace, efficient layout located where the estimator will not be disturbed. Enough space, everything within range. You guys have looked at it. You see, you have blueprints all over. You have all your stuff, so you need ample amount of room. Preferably multiple tables around you, a chair that can rotate, that you can be and you can rotate and go from one sheet to another. So you need ample amount of space. Estimating tools, proper estimating tools, cut down on the human error. So you need to have every estimating tool that can help you to do it efficiently and quickly, my friends. Okay, here's a few of them. Agree or disagree? Aspirin. That's probably goes with the discussion, right? Adding machine, you need an adding machine, you need a calculator, bookcases, chairs, colored pencils, and I'm not going to go over copy machines, counters. So these are a few, one of the few things, guys. You have digital wheel, magnifier glass, pencil sharpeners, plan table. So all these common sense things. So when you guys, especially those who are working in the field and estimator, have this in the front of you. Check your desk when you go there. Do I have all these? This will be a guideline to make you, because you guys are new, to make yourself efficient as you do your estimating. You guys, when we came over here, we gave you, I don't think we gave you ample amount of space, but we gave you pencils and pencil sharpener, the blueprints that we got. You have calculators. Everybody has a calculator. Stereo and headphones. Mechanical pencils, and so a couple of things. Here's a couple of more things, guys, and I'm not going to go over all of them. Plan racks, printers, softwares, walls, access to the internet, whiteboard. You have to have access to the internet. So Joe, if you're taking a material that you have never heard of it, a switch gear that you need, so all what you have to do while you are doing the estimating, go online and research it, get some information. Phone, you're confused with something that you will take off on the plan, and you have a friend that graduated with you, or somebody that you worked with, you give him a buzz and say, hey, what do you guys think about that piece of equipment? How many man hours should I assign to it? Any comments, guys, about these common sense tools and workspace? Common sense, Brian? Cool? Zach, Jeff? Makes sense? Common things. If I were you guys, especially the ones who are working estimating, use it as a checklist as you go to your office, wherever you do estimating, when you become an estimator, use it as a checklist. That's what I would do if I'm doing an estimator. Multi-screen, guys. If you're doing online, it will be disaster to do online takeoff with screens like you have right now. Get the biggest screen that you can get. Multi-screen. When we go Egan, they have multiple screens that they use when they do especially the CAD takeoff and so forth. You don't want to be looking at screen like this screen. A lot of contractors have a smart board like this. They review the project directly on a screen like this. So have ample amount of things to work with. Okay, so that's what you need to get into the estimating. Types of beds. A couple of things, guys, about the types of beds. Type of beds you might experience. We talked a few things about the types of beds. We said competitive bed. Everybody does not mean CA Electric can bid on a hospital. Competitive bid, guys, there is a minimum requirement for competitive bids. I remember at Elevate Beckett, in order to bid on a job, you have to provide 5-6 jobs that you have done in the last 5 to 10 years related to what we're doing. We don't want the riffraffs to jump in and bid on jobs that they can't do. So but everybody who's qualified can jump in. Design build, guys, Parson or Egan Hunt, they got hired by the engineers or the general contractor or the architects or the owner to completely do a design for the building and build it. And Dave Karski, when he was here, talked about that one. Negotiated. You and a couple of other companies walk in with the owner, negotiate the maximum that you're going to charge him for this, and then they go from how much money do you guys have to build this building? $1 million. Let's start there. Here's the optimum design and construction for a building within a budget of $1 million. So really interesting. Time and material. Time and material is the best. Doesn't no owner or general contractors want you to do time and material on a new construction. They have to have a control. So time and material, if you're doing remodeling, guys, a big deal, time and material, because you have no idea what you're going to, as you bust these walls, have no idea how the circuits are put together. You have not wired the building. So time and material, you send your electricians there, keep track of their time, keep track of every single penny that you spend, add them up, and charge the customers. And Jeff, like you and I talked last week, you typically the customers wants a cab when they have time and material, not to exceed $50,000. We're going to keep track of our time, but not to exceed $50,000. So you make the customers happy by charging them instead of all the way to 50, 45. So unit price, guys, for dwellings. Every 2,000 square foot house that you wire is going to cost you $10,000. A developer will come and say, I want you guys to bid as a unit price on all these 25 units that we're going to install in Burnsville. For a unit price of 10 grand a house. The house is, say, 25,000 square foot, 2,500 square foot. That's, you throw that 25, you multiply it by 10, and that will be your labor, material, profit, everything. So that's a few things. We talked about the competitive lowest price, bidding lowest prices sought for the project to bidding. So competitive, like we said, guys, you bring a bunch of very qualified people and you take the lowest bid that they provide. But they have to be qualified though. Design build, must know the customers. So you meet the customers. The contractor will be hired directly by the electrical contractor, by the owner or the general contractor, to do the building, the design and the building for it. Negotiated between electrical contractor and customers the scope of job, so you negotiate the work. Time and material. So we talked about the time and material, guys. Most of the things that you do time and material is really the remodeling comes in remodeling and maintenance. If you're doing maintenance for a project, you do time and material with a cab. Unit price. We talked about unit price. The most important thing about the unit price, guys, you have to include your labor and material, your profit and overhead for the unit price. Office build outs, charge order. In anything a good example of time and of unit price, guys, is service. We use it a lot as changing a 60 amp fuse for smaller contractor fuse panel into a 100 amp panel. So you walk in and say, what you're doing is taking that 60 amps, putting a box of 6 amp fuses, putting a 100 amp box of circuit breakers, installing a new cable, typically of 100 amp, and remapping all the circuit inside the house. So a lot of people will say, to do all this one, we're going to charge you $1,500. That's a unit price, including everything. We will walk in, we'll put the new wire, we'll put the new box, remap all the circuits for you, relabel all the circuits for you for $1,500, including labor and material. Does that make sense? So it's done. You do it over and over again in old homes. So we know that costs us that amount. But to come up with the unit price, you have to have done a detailed estimate. So I know what goes into changing a service from a 60 amp into 100 amp, right? You're going to have a box, you're going to have 15 and 20 amp circuit breakers, maybe 30 amp for the air conditioning, 40 amp for the range, if any, and then you're going to remap them. You have to go there. Somebody has to be with you so they can remap all these circuits, relabel the circuit, and pull the wire to the mast and tie it to the overhead. Okay, what's the problem with the unit price? If you made a mistake with the unit price, you screwed up. If you think a house will cost you, Jeff, when you wire residential, $10,000 to wire completely 2,500 square foot house, and you're doing 25 of them, if you made a mistake with the unit price, it will multiply. Okay, any comments, guys? Any questions? Am I going too fast, too slow for it? It's common sense, a lot of stuff that we're doing here. Um, what an accurate estimate must include. So we'll talk about what's the accurate estimate must include. Um, Accurate estimate must include all the cost, how much is going to cost you, the burden for the benefit, as well the overhead, as well as the profit. The most important thing, guys, it's really bottom line is the cost, how much does it cost you to build this project, including the burden, the benefit that you give to your employees, and and the overhead, that's your cost. Then you spice it up a little bit, you put some profit on it, and that will be your bid price. So material, sales tax, the rig job expensive, overhead. Don't forget that all this have to be included. Improper estimating methods. Let's talk about improper estimating methods. Have you guys looked at the specification when you start taking off? Do you know that I could have said in the specification right now, I could have said spec type receptacle. A spec type receptacle, guys, $3 versus a non-spec type receptacle, $1 now. So would that make a difference in the way you take off all your project? So when we do commercial, you're going to see all these specifications say spec type receptacles. That's a commercial grade receptacle, more robust, bigger. Spec type devices, same thing with the switches. So that will be listed in the specification. So that's why ignoring the specification will lead you in disaster. You will always, without including a requirement, no good strategy if you plan on staying in business. So you have to read the specification. I remember when Parson comes here, guys, they say they have not just the electrical spec, the whole spec. So how are you going to read a book that thick? So what they do is they take the electronic version of it and they run search on certain words. In the electrical spec, they understand it. It's easy. But then how about the mechanical spec? What if they say the electrical contractor shall do this? So what they do is they run search on motors or in the mechanical spec, or in electrical contractor, the word electrical contractor, or wire. So they search for certain things in the documentation that electronically search. So it makes them, instead of reading every single spec of every discipline, makes them efficient. So ignoring errors in the prints and specification. If you don't know what the scale is, you got some scale issues when you start doing it. So you can't ignore and assume that scale, guys, when you start taking off your feeders and branch circuit, that's going to be that. The scale is going to be 3/4. So you have to verify the scale and verify anything that you're not familiar with in the specification, because you end up with a lot of mistakes. Meeting the lowest bid. There's a lot of contractors, guys. Luckily, they have to qualify when you do a hospital. But say if you're a smaller contractor, a lot of people bid on a smaller jobs. So there's smaller people who are running a shop from the back of their truck, and there is no way on earth, Jeff, that you can compete with somebody who's running an office and from their back, from the back of their truck, especially in a smaller job. They give themselves $50, guys, and that's about it. So they can underbid you. Meeting the lowest bid, if you are a reputable big contractor, is not always the best strategy. You have to charge how much it's going to cost you. Shot in the dark. Shot in the dark, you walk in. I like Dave comes here. You know what they use shot in the dark sometimes? If you don't want to do the job and you're really busy and you don't want to say no to the customers, what they do is you go meet with the customers, walk around, they want to remodeling, for example, or doing certain things, walk around and throw a number that's, it's ridiculously high, that no matter what you do, we all know how much it's going to cost, but you give them a number that's the worst scenario that you can encounter. And if they got it, they got it. You got the job, you'll do it. If they say no, then you did not get stuck with a project that you cannot do. Okay, so these are the improper estimating methods. The proper estimating methods, guys, detailed estimating method. Here's the single most important thing about this chapter is really this is detailed estimating method. Step number 1 with estimating, guys, is understanding the scope of the bid or the scope of the work. You guys are designing this project. You know how the project is put together. You're using raw mix, what type of wiring methods you're using, what type of boxes you're using, metallic or non-metallic. If you go outside, what type of conduit we're going to be using. So that's understanding the scope of work. Read the specification, look at all the notes, no guessing, don't guess. So that's where reading the blueprints and the specification, we even going, guys, if you're a new building, you go and check where the building is going to be located, how the traffic around it, do you have enough parking for your people. Understanding the scope of work is the single most important thing. So our scope of work for this project was residential Romex, right? We're using Romex for this one. Step number 2, takeoff. You gentlemen have been doing takeoff with me, right? Takeoff is 2 words: counting the devices, right? And the equipment, and measuring the distances of the feeders, branch circuits, and services. If anybody disagree with that, that's what you guys are doing and putting on this blueprints right in the front of you. Keep errors to the minimum. So determine the material needed for the project. And again, in this way, you have to use systematic, repetitive methods. So from a project to a project, guys, you're not going to go. Every time you have you have systemized a process, you minimize the errors in it, right? So for example, Jeff, you did power this time. Next time, next project, well, what should you do? Power, because you get into the rhythm of doing it. So step number 1, understand the scope of work. Step number 2 is take off. Step number 3, determine the bill of material. When you guys are done with your takeoff, you're going to put this one in the sheet that I gave you. That should give you the detailed bill of material that you need for this project. A good estimating project, guys, should give you a detailed material list that you need for every stage of your project. Every stage of your project. Any comments, any questions, Joe, my friend? Comments, common sense, 3. If you have labor intensive and leads to likely errors, if you're doing it by hand, if you're doing it by software, you're going to see next week when we do McCormick, guys, it's bets really good, nice list of material of all your EMT conduit, wires, devices, you name it. If you're doing it by hand, you can do a lot of you could do a lot of mistakes. Pricing and laboring. The word pricing, guys, Brian, my friend, if you are switchgear, I'm going to assign pricing you. I'm going to assign $5,000 to buy that switchgear. That's called pricing. Laboring is assigning a man hour, a qualified, skilled, motivated electrician man hour, not an average Joe. A qualified, dedicated, motivated, skilled electrician man hour to do this work. So this fixture is $100 price, and I'm going to install it. I need 0.25, a quarter of an hour to install this fixture. Done. That's pricing and laboring. So you have your labor material, guys. When you do the takeoff, you have list of all the material. Then you assign a dollar value price as well as an hour value as your labor. Any comments, guys, about pricing and laboring of your bill of material? The sheets that I gave you, the 17, 18 sheet that I gave you guys, going through these steps one at a time, as you know. Any comments, any questions about that? Comments, questions? So that's your step number 4. Labor intensive, if you have a computer, the pricing and laboring is the least of your problem, because the minute that you pick up an assembly or an item, the computer will assign a labor and material for it. And you can assign a difficult labor or an easy labor depending where you are in the country, or on a city, on the countryside, or where are you in a region in the US. So and the same thing for the price. The good software guys have multiple price that you can pick from. So you have to decide, is it in Chicago that we're going to do the project, or is it going to be in central Minnesota? So, okay, extending and totaling. Extending and totaling is nothing other than multiplying. How many fixtures do you have? 5. Each one of them is $100, $500. How many fixtures do you have? 5. Each one of them is a quarter of an hour. So 5 times a quarter, that will get me 1.25? 1.25 an hour to put 5 of these fixtures. So adding them, and that's extending, and then you add the hours together and the dollars together. Any comments, guys, about extending and totaling the project? Extending and totaling. The software that I gave you guys have all these sheets. Remember that sheet that I walked you through? That's exactly following it, step by step. Extending and totaling. Extensive labor, the software will take care of you. Your software will take care of you. Estimate summary. When you're done, guys, the estimate summary will include your material, the summary of all your material, our material dollars, and the summary of all your hours for the project. Then this is where you can go. I have $10,000 worth of dollars for the material. I have 1,000 hours, man hour. Now I have these 2 values. What should I do with them? Should I adjust them because of the conditions? Fifth and blah, blah, blah. So you put them together and you start applying some adjustment for them. So you can add the after you put these two values, you add tax to them, you adjust them because of the condition, labor and material, and so forth. Overhead and profit. So when you adjust them, guys, then after you adjust these two values because of the conditions, and you guys, I walked you through the Excel sheet. It has the condition that we theft and material related to this project. After you do that, you have to add something called the overhead and the profit. You need to add your overhead to manage this project. Overhead, guys, is the price of managing the project. Anyone who does not wear a belt and carry the tools will be assigned as an overhead. That's one way of doing it. So overhead, we said what, 20 to 40% you can assign an overhead. If you're running your business from the back of your truck, your overhead is big fat zero. What's your overhead? Nothing. Then profit. Profit you need after you paid everything, including your overhead, to buy a truck for the company, right? Or to invest back into the company. How much profit do you want? It can go from no profit because we really barely can keep our electrician running, right? Into 20% profit, and you're lucky if you can get 5 to 10% profit in some of these projects, especially these days. So these are, I would like to ask you guys, as Jason comes at 9 o'clock, will be interesting to see how they assign a profit and overhead for their projects. Any question, guys? If there's something important in this chapter, Joe, these steps that we're going through is the single most important things really in the whole book. The steps of profit and overhead. Bid analysis. Bid analysis. After you guys, you added the profit, and after you added your profit and the overhead, do you think you're going to submit your bid price and say we're done with that, right? And here we're going to build it. You have to run analysis. One of the analysis that we run, Jeff, later on, you're going to see we're going to have take the percentage of labor, from the overall price of the project, percentage of material, the profit percentage, the dollar per square foot price of this project. That will give you an indication that have you done good. If every house that you have done, guys, was $5 per square for a house, and this time is 10. So Zach, when you send it to your boss, and they take the square foot of that commercial building divided by the price divided by the square foot, end up with say $25 per square foot for a commercial building, and every one they did was 13. They're going to ask you, okay, so it's not like you committed a crime, but why did we go double? What's unique about this project that we're going double? So that will help a lot of people, guys, validate, make sure the bid is accurate before you submit it, and commit you and yourself and your company to the project, to it. The last process, the last step, guys, step number 9, the single most important thing is the bid proposal. I walked you through the bid proposal. Bid proposal must submitted. The most important thing about the bid proposal, guys, is one single number. The bid price. We're going to do this job as a CA Electric for $10,000, labor and material, number one. And we're going to do, and then it includes things that you are doing, especially if it's small job, guys, and things that you're not liable for. The good thing about design, if you have a project like Blueprint, guys, it's so easy. The bid includes everything in the blueprint and the specification. Done. If you're a smaller contractor, Jeff, and you're doing some work without blueprints, you have to specify exactly in your bid what you want to do, right? Otherwise, you walk into the customer and you're supposed to put 5 outlets for them, and they add 7 outlets, 2 more outlets. If it's not in your bid, if it doesn't say install and wire 5 outlets, when they put the 2 outlets, that's a change order. You will do them for extra money. Does that make sense? Especially in for a smaller contractor, they drive you nuts. Jeff, you and I talked about that guy. It has to be in the specification. I worked for Weaver Electric for 6 months, and he was very good at writing. Small company, we do a lot of service calls. Before we go to the job, he will give me a list of the things I'm supposed to do. If the owner wants me to do more than that thing, then we will be more than happy to do it, but for an extra. So, any comments, guys, about the proposal? How much is it going to cost you? What you're supposed to do? What you're not supposed to do? Especially disposal of material, toxic materials, guys, and hazardous material, if any. That's a big deal. Are you doing it? Is the customer doing it? And another thing that they include is the payment method. How are you going to pay me? You're going to pay me, say, 20% before I start the job, and then 50%, and then 25, the last 25 you pay them to me after I finish the job. So in the sheet that I gave you guys have a payment method. Any comments, guys? Any questions about these 9 steps of estimation? 9 steps of detailed estimating method. If there's something important about this book, it's these 9 steps. If you don't, I'm sure you guys care about it, but also you guarantee this will be in our final on our test. These steps, list the 9 steps of estimating. So very easy. You write them in your own words. I don't care, but as long as it reflects proposal as a proposal. Any comments? Any questions? So that's my steps. How accurate can an estimate be? This talks about the accuracy of the estimate. It talks about, guys, there is no 100% accurate estimate. If the labor, your labor, Jeff, can be within a couple of percentages, a couple of like 1 to 3% accurate, plus or minus your labor, your material. The problem is always with your labor. Your labor fluctuates, guys. It could be plus or minus 5 to 10%. Even higher than that. So that's so there is no, when you're done with your project, estimating the project, what good companies do, guys, they keep track when they awarded the bid and the job, they go keep track of their time and they compare it to the estimate that they did, and that'll give them an idea how far were they from a real implementation of this project. So give you guys an idea how to track your real expenses of your labor and material. Okay, more experience, more accurate confidence. So, like I said, with more experience, your bid will be accurate. The only way you can have a very accurate bid, guys, is you keep track after you do the estimate. You're awarded the job. The project managers manage the job properly, keep track of the labor and material for every stage, and then reference them against what you guys have done in the estimate. And that will get you, and then a lot of companies do analysis. Here's what we estimated for, here's what we actually did, and we were off by 5% or 10%. Hopefully you want to be below. So it'll give you an idea, but roughly 1 to 3 to 4% on the material, 5 to 10% on the labor is typically the accuracy that you're looking for. If you are bidding on this talks about if you're bidding on a project, guys, that you have a material or a section that you have never done before, divide it down into different smaller sections, manageable sections, and then apply. Then it's easier for you to labor and price it. For example, bus ducts. You've never took a bus duct, so you're going to look at the bus duct. Okay, the bus duct is heavy. So what's the difference between mounting a bus duct and mounting a fixture? It's heavier. You need more equipment. So if it takes me a 0.25 to mount this fixture, and the bus duct, depending on the size, is really bigger, maybe I should multiply that number by 4. Maybe it's an hour to 1 hour to mount a section of that bus duct. So you divide it into little sections and you apply what you know to it. We talked about the material can be the most predictable. There's one issue with the material, guys, the copper price, because we use a lot of copper. You have to keep track of your copper. Copper price can fluctuate. So a lot of contractors, and what they do is they put the bid valid until this date, from this date to this date. That's we guarantee you. After that, we have to basically re-examine the price of the copper and so forth. Because things change and things change fast. Include a time window. The most important things with your price, you have to have a time window. A time window will include a time window for your price. Okay. Accurate. If you're installed in doing estimating manually, we talked about, guys, extending and totaling can be significant errors you can create if you're doing extending and totaling. To ensure, so material budget must be provided to the job supervisor to ensure the material usage is per estimation. We talked about this one, guys. We talked about providing an estimate to the project manager, so the project manager can provide. You cannot manage a project without a budget. You cannot have a budget without an estimate. So you start with your estimate. The estimate will get you the job and detailed information, labor material about your project. You pass it into the project manager if you are not the project manager, and that's the proper way of managing that project with the info that you have. um, Waste, work in place, quickly increase the accuracy. So I can't emphasize, guys, the importance of I can't emphasize the importance of the estimator relationship with the project manager if they're not the same person. If they're not the same person, you cannot manage a project without a budget. Okay, labor. We talked about predicting the labor, guys. Is sometimes it's harder to predict the labor. There's a labor agreement. Most of companies have a bargaining agreement, like with IBW and so forth. So you have the price of your labor. The problem is with the productivity of labor. So, like I said, within 10% is kind of an acceptable range. If you are within 10%, just plus or minus, you always want to be on the minus side. But if you are above 10% of what you budgeted for, this is unacceptable in terms of labor. Material, probably up to 5%. Above is an acceptable method. We talked about the labor, the same thing have to be provided to the supervisor, so the supervisor can manage the project, or the project manager. um, Electrician, which increase the project. This is a couple of things. Okay, that will lead us, guys, into so we talked about really summary to summarize the whole. When you do your project, when you do your bid price, detailed estimating, you give it to the project manager. If you're not the project manager, the project manager will use it as a budget for this project, keep track of every stage of the project in order to stay under budget and provide the promised profit for the company. If you do that, you succeed. If you don't, you would not last as a project manager and estimator that long. When Jason comes at 9 o'clock, guys, and we'll ask him the same thing, how do they do the labor and the material? They're non-union shops, so in Melrose, and they're big company, do not too big, but see how they do their stuff. Okay, a manual estimating software or estimating services. Should I use a manual, a software estimating service? There are three ways of doing estimating, guys. Either manually, you're doing it manually with an Excel sheet with your friend Chad. Software, McCormick, AccuBid, or estimating service. An estimating service, guys, I don't know if you ever heard of it. They farm the estimate. So I'm a contractor. I don't have time or knowledge in bidding on this project. So what do? I hire a third party to do the takeoff and the estimating for me, and hopefully I can learn from them. So which one? Each one of them has advantages and disadvantages. Manual estimate. Not efficient for those regularly bidding jobs. What's wrong with a manual efficient? Not efficient, a lot of errors. What's the advantage of doing it manually? If you're CE Electric, can you afford to have an AccuBid, guys? Can you afford to have a McCormick software? You can't afford. So you have to have a sheet like the one that I gave you. For smaller contractor, a sheet, an Excel sheet is God sent to them. For smaller contractors, it's easy. They can't afford to have a software, train the people to run it, and at the same time also maintaining it. Manual estimate requires no much, become backlogged, and project management suffers. Manual estimation is only for smaller contractor. If you're a smaller contractor, manual estimation, meaning an Excel sheet, is you run your small shop, you can handle it. You cannot afford to maintain and a software. Okay, manual overhead. This is just a couple of things, the disadvantage of manual. A couple of calculation. It takes a lot of time, guys, to do it manually. With Excel sheet, though, if you have a good Excel sheet, it doesn't take much. I mean, when I say manual, you will be a fool unless you are just a one-man shop to do estimating on a napkin for everything that you do, guys. And a lot of people do that. If you're a one-man shop, it works, because you estimate for yourself. If you want to grow more than a one-man shop or a one-man or one-woman shop, you got to have at least an Excel sheet. You have to have at least an Excel sheet, because it takes you longer time if you're doing it manual. Bid accuracy when you're doing it manual is really not the best. With the Excel, I consider Excel doing it manual. I really do. But if you're doing it real manual, meaning on a piece of paper and you write it by hand, imagine if you're doing all this calculation by hand and the price, the quotation for the fixtures change. So what are you going to do? you're going to go change by hand, cross and do the calculation by hand. The nice thing about having at least Excel is you change one cell, it carries it all the way through. So that's I mean one Excel, having an Excel is one step above manual. I still consider it manual though. So you cannot react fast to the changes that happen in your project if you're doing it manually. As we all know, manual bill of material. Bill of material, guys, if you're doing it manual by hand, is also not easy to develop a bill of material. If you have an Excel sheet, you can probably you guys have the bill of material that you develop through an Excel sheet. So Excel sheet will be a compromise if you're doing it manually, to get you the best bill of material that you can get out of that system. Project management. um, Project management suffer if you're doing it manually again. Why project management suffer? Because, but most of the people who are doing it manually, guys, is a very small shop, so it really doesn't matter. I'm the project manager. I've done it by hand, and I know all the material and call it, and it's $1,000 anyway. So, okay, it will be very difficult last minute. If you have last minute change, if you're a big contractor and the quotation, guys, they keep the quotation for the last minute, and they give you the quote, $10,000 for a fixture, and you're installing them on a piece of paper, start doing multiplication. Good luck. Again, minimum. If you are a contractor who are, I would say, a 10-man or woman contractor, you must have at least an Excel sheet to organize your stuff. They can attempt to make educated guesses, responses. So it gets you into a lot of problems, guys, in tracking. It's a lot of work if there's any change in your project, if you're doing it the manual method. If you're willing to give the time. So, and everybody now with their cell phone and everything else demand on the spot answer right now. So again, if you're a contractor, you can't afford at least a 5 to 10-man contractor. You can't afford not to have at least an Excel sheet. You really can't. At least an Excel sheet. Software. The software, when you guys do a software like McCormick and Accubid, and to some extent Excel, when you do the takeoff like you guys did with me, all what you have to do is measure and count the component. If your sheet is good as an Excel, you plug in an Excel sheet, it should do all the math for you. But when they talk about software here, they don't talk about Excel, guys. They talk about estimating software like Accubid and McCormick that has the labor and material assigned into it, and you pull these assemblies and items, and as you pull them, it assigns the labor and the material to them, and all what you have to do is just put how many of them or what's the length of these components. And all the mathematical calculation done for you. All your mathematical calculation done for you. What's nice about having a software, estimating the project is cheaper to estimate the project, cheaper to react to changes, easier, faster, more accurate, give you tons of information to manage the project. Reduce the likelihood that you will do an error. If you're doing an Excel, guys, you give an Excel to somebody who's not good, guess what's going to do? They're going to go type where there's a math and screw up the formula for you if they're not good with Excel. That's why some of you guys going to school like this and you know Excel will be an asset to a company, because hopefully you're smart enough not to go type to where there's a math and delete your math, and then you have to go recreate the math if you know how. So that's your software. Software bid accuracy. No error, almost no errors, guys, when it comes to having McCormick or Accubid. If you pick the right labor, NICA labor for McCormick, and the right price based on the location and the country you are in, and then what the end Joe is garbage in, garbage out. If you put the information in the software right, you're guaranteed to have a very accurate estimate. The only mistake that you could do then is just inputting the information to the software. You have almost eliminated all the mathematical errors in the totaling and pricing of the project, and applying the percentages and everything in math, and assigning the labor and the material. If you're using a software, job accuracy is, you eliminated that. And of course, you have a professional appearance of your estimate. So you can react fast if you have an AccuBid. You get the code for the switch gear. You can literally stick a number. So your code supposed to be $25,000. You put that $25,000 and you click on another page and you see your bid proposal, and you send your bid proposal on the spot. So you can react very, very fast. Um, Bill of material, Jeff, if you have a AccuBid like you're going to see next week, it have detailed bill of material to the point of it tells you how many feet of number 12 copper wire THHN you need for this project. That's great. Now I can go order the material, not only the total, but also for every stage of your project. So I can order the material as I need them. Easier to accommodate last minute changes, like we said in the specification and the drawing. Um, permit you to produce up to 4 times as many. I like that one. 4 times as many estimates, and the odds of winning the job are increased. You're fast. What they do, guys, with a lot of contractors, when you guys do McCormick, you're going to see you can copy an estimate that you've done. So, for example, if you did 2 commercial building and they're like 80% the same, you can copy the whole estimate that you did for one project and adjust it for the second project, right? All what you have to do is just adjust. It's the same floor, the same thing. You know what I mean? I have 10% more cubicles in this project. Multiply your value by 10%. So it allows you to be more efficient as you estimate. Much more efficient. Okay, estimating service. Any question, guys, about manual estimating? Down, unless you're a smaller contractor. Estimating software, up. Good in everything. If you're Hunt, Egan, Parson, any of these ACE, any of these big, Milrose, we'll see what Milrose do at 9 o'clock when Jason comes, guys. Those guys, you need an estimating software. The software can be as simple as Excel, but really detailed and well-kept Excel sheet works really good. Doing it manually, that's for a one and two man work. Electrical contractors, they do in the back of their truck. Not a big deal. Okay, temporary agencies. Estimating service. How many of you guys have heard of estimating service? Anybody heard of estimating service? Those are like third-party guys. They sit and they estimate the projects for anybody who pays them. When would you use something like this, Jeff, if you are not familiar with this type of work and you don't, and if you don't have the manpower to do the estimate, you're too busy. So you hire those guys so they can do the estimate for you. So you gain 2 things. Number one, you get the knowledge from them. Now you have a detailed information, and hopefully you learn how to take up a project in special industry. And number 2, if you're busy, you have another group of people who are doing an estimate for you. The disadvantage, of course, they are not your estimators, and you have to pay them. So it's a temporary agency. Used to double check an estimate. It's a good use if you're not familiar with that particular job. Nuclear plant, electrical for a nuclear plant, and you want to bid on it. You've never done that. It would be really nice to, I don't know if you even allow you to do that, but it would be really nice to have somebody who have done it, like an estimating service that they have done it before. They do the takeoff for you, help you with some technical stuff as needed. As a consultant, they will be your consultant on that project. Or you don't have time to estimate it. It's an excellent tool to help you gain estimating experience at a reduced risk. So that's estimating experience at a reduced risk. I'm never serviced, but I don't know of any service here in Minnesota that can estimating service. Okay, so, and then the other thing, Kerry, that this software can do to you is you don't have to keep the software. You know, you don't have to have a software. So these guys have the software. They do the takeoff for you. They give you a detailed bill of material, and the bid price and everything is detailed, given to you, and you do not have to buy or maintain estimating software. So that takes this one out of your plate. And of course, you know the cost of your project in advance. Any comments, guys? Any questions? If I am to set, that's it. That's this chapter. Any comments, guys? Any questions about it? I can't emphasize, if you have to know something out of this chapter, the 9 steps of estimating, starting with the takeoff and ending with the proposal. 9 steps of estimating, guys. These are the single most important things that you have to do. Qualities of estimator is a good thing, and the place where you estimate. If I were you, I know Jeff and Zach and a few of you guys are doing estimating. Use it as a checklist where you are. Talk to your boss about it. Here's the suggestions. I know different companies do it differently. At least it will give you one way of doing it. This is only one way of doing business. Okay. Like I said, for those of you who came late, guys, we do have 2 speakers this week. We have Jason from Melrose is going to be here at 9. He's going to talk about the opportunity of working for them, and maybe we'll throw a couple of questions about estimating and how they do it. So hopefully, he's not scheduled to do an estimating class, so to speak, but he will talk about at least a few things what they do. I have Cedar Lake Electric. Nate is coming tomorrow, and he's scheduled to do estimating and project management from their point of view. So hopefully we'll introduce you to a different, instead of listening to Chad all the time, um, you'll listen to a different opinions, different way of doing business. Okay? That's all I have. Thank you.